Hello, I'm Owen. At 24, I find myself single and enjoying the independence of living alone in a modest yet comfortable apartment just outside Lafayette. While it may not be extraordinary, it certainly provides ample comfort. I have been employed at a logistics company for approximately 6 months now. While it may not be the ideal position I envisioned, it certainly helps keep the lights on. I've always preferred to stand back rather than pursue others or become entangled in unnecessary drama. I prefer to maintain a life that is uncomplicated, consistent, straightforward, and reliable. A few months ago, I began spending time with a colleague named Dylan. At 22, he's a touch younger than I am, yet he carries an easygoing demeanor. We connected almost instantly. Our humor aligned perfectly. We shared a passion for classic hip-hop, and we enjoyed playing basketball after work. To be honest, I never anticipated forming any genuine friendships at that job. Yet, amidst it all, we found ourselves sharing meals after our shifts, exchanging silly memes through texts, and spending nights at each other's homes, whether to unwind or dive into gaming sessions. One Friday evening, after the workday had come to a close, Dylan extended an invitation for me to come over to his home. "My mom's preparing dinner," and he exclaimed, "You have to taste the garlic chicken. Honestly, it'll astonish you." I chuckled and replied, "Okay, I'm in." We arrived at his home, a tidy, well-maintained two-story nestled in a peaceful neighborhood. The scene presented itself as a testament to years of dedicated effort and care. Upon entering, the aroma from the kitchen enveloped me, akin to a comforting embrace. The harmonious fusion of garlic, butter, and herbs creates a symphony of flavors that dance together flawlessly. And then I laid eyes on her, his mother. She emerged from the kitchen, an apron draped over her, hands busy drying on a dish towel. She was known as Sophia. To be completely honest, I was caught off guard by that. She defied the typical image that springs to mind when one hears the words, "my mom." Her long blonde hair was loosely tied, with a few rebellious strands cascading over her cheek. Those piercing blue eyes and an undeniably striking figure commanded attention. She appeared to be in her mid-30s, perhaps even younger if one wasn't aware of her true age, certainly not 40. Her presence shifted the very atmosphere, altering the dynamics of the space around her. She effortlessly succeeded. She finally captured their attention. "Hi," she said, her smile radiating warmth and assurance. "You must be Owen. Dylan has brought you up on several occasions." I returned the smile. "I trust all is well." She let out a soft, melodic laugh. "Only positive outcomes. The dinner preparations are nearly complete. Feel free to settle in as if this is your own space." I settled into a chair at the dining table as Dylan dashed upstairs to fetch something. Sophia made her way back to the kitchen, and I found myself stealing glances at her from time to time. It wasn't intentional, but there was an undeniable allure in the way she moved, the way she carried herself. It transcended mere appearance. It was the aura she exuded, as if a profound essence within her had been shrouded in shadows for far too long. The dinner exceeded all my expectations, truly a delightful experience. We gathered around the table, exchanging laughter and recounting amusing tales from our workplace adventures. Sophia chimed in intermittently, playfully teasing Dylan and chuckling at his remarks. Her sharp wit took me by surprise. I distinctly recalled thinking, "She's nothing like my mom." It was nothing like the vision I had in my mind. Later that night, upon returning home, I found myself revisiting fragments of the evening in my mind. It wasn't the food or the tales that lingered, but rather her presence. There was something about Sophia that lingered in my mind. In the weeks that followed, I found myself returning more often. Occasionally it was to spend time with Dylan, other times it was simply to watch a game. Sophia was a constant presence, effortlessly composed in every situation. Even in moments of casual interaction, her smile lingered just a bit too long, leaving an impression. She would inquire about my well-being, curious about my recent activities, and she had a remarkable knack for recalling the smallest details I'd shared, like my coffee preferences, or the series I was currently binge-watching. It wasn't anything earth-shattering, yet it managed to capture my focus. I kept it to myself, certainly not sharing it with Dylan, but beneath the surface, I sensed a tension brewing. Each time I crossed their threshold, the atmosphere shifted, electric with unspoken energy. She wasn't overtly flirting. Not precisely. Yet the way her gaze trailed after me throughout the room conveyed more than mere words, much like how she'd positioned herself just a tad too close when passing me a drink. I was aware of it, and I had a strong feeling she was, as well. We simply hadn't voiced it aloud. Then, on a Saturday afternoon, we found ourselves in the living room, engrossed in the game. Dylan received a call and rose to his feet. Blast. Bite. I completely overlooked that. I made a promise to my friend to pick something up for him. I should be back in about 20 minutes. He snatched his keys and dashed out the door before I had a chance to say much. The moment it clicked shut, I sensed it. That palpable shift in the atmosphere. Sophia entered the living room, moving with a serene slowness, and settled onto the couch beside me. Not across the room, not just nearby. Right beside me, intimately close. Our arms were almost brushing against each other. She stole a quick look at the TV before shifting her gaze to me. Her voice emerged gently, as if she had been anticipating this moment all day. We're finally alone. I turned to face her, and she held my gaze. In that moment, I realized this was more than mere politeness or fleeting curiosity. She was genuinely captivated by me, with an honesty and fearlessness that mirrored my own feelings, and I could no longer deny the connection between us. When she uttered, "At last, we are alone," everything fell silent. The television continued to play. The game unfolded around me, yet its sounds faded into oblivion. My focus was entirely consumed by Sophia, who held my gaze without faltering. There was no forced smile, no uneasy chuckle. She made no attempt to retract her words or disguise the moment. She spoke as if those words had been carefully tucked away, anticipating the precise moment when Dylan would finally emerge. I, too, held my ground. I returned her look with a subtle, gentle smile. Neither arrogant nor self-satisfied, simply a subtle acknowledgement that conveys, "Yes, I get it." She adjusted her position, angling her body more toward me on the couch, one leg folded beneath her. Her arm lay casually behind me on the cushion, her fingers hovering just inches from my shoulder. "Owen," she started, her voice hanging in the air as if she were carefully considering each syllable. "This isn't something I typically engage in. In fact, I've never ventured into territory like this before." I tilted my head slightly, just enough to signal that her words were not lost in the void. "I'm not crazy," she asserted hastily, as if uttering the phrase could stave off any encroaching uncertainty. "I understand that you're friends with Dylan, and I recognize the age difference between us. I see how this might appear, but when you're here and we're talking, I don't feel like a mother. I am filled with vitality. I am brimming with youthfulness. I am stirred by a desire for something once more." She needed no further words. I understood completely. "You are more than just a mother to someone," I said to her. "You are uniquely yourself. There's no need for you to explain that." Her expression softened, as if she had been poised to defend herself, but suddenly understood that there was no need to. She took a slow breath, her gaze dropping momentarily as if she were collecting her thoughts. "I became a mother to Dylan at 19. His father departed before he even entered the world. I brought him up by myself. I have always been the reliable one, the steady presence, the mother, but never just Sophia. I lost touch with what it means to be seen as a woman." She glanced up at me once more, her voice faltering slightly on that final line. In that moment, I truly perceived her not merely as Dylan's mother, nor as a figment of imagination, but as a genuine person. This was no mere game. She wasn't pursuing thrill for mere amusement. She found herself in solitude. This solitude had been her companion for quite some time. In that moment, without any effort on my part, I reached into a hidden corner of her soul, one she had long kept concealed. I refrained from filling the silence with words, choosing instead to linger in the stillness beside her for a brief while. With a tender touch, I lifted my hand to brush a stray lock of hair away from her cheek. She remained still, offering no resistance, not even a hint of surprise. Her eyes closed for a fleeting moment, as if that simple act carried more weight than it ought to. The atmosphere surrounding us crackled with energy, yet it remained steady. We were acutely aware of the unfolding moment, and neither of us wished to diminish its significance by hurrying through it. That day, our lips never met. We stopped at just that one fleeting touch. Yet, in that moment, everything transformed. We had crossed an undeniable threshold, one that neither of us could ignore. There was no turning back now. Approximately 20 minutes later, just as he had promised, Dylan walked in through the front door, snacks in hand and a couple of sodas tucked under his arm. Sophia returned to the kitchen, as if the earlier incident had never occurred. I found myself on the couch, feigning interest in the game, though my gaze was far from the screen. My thoughts drifted to her, to the way her gaze met mine, igniting a longing to be in her presence once more. Not as the mother of Dylan, but as Sophia, the woman who had finally opened her heart to me. A few days passed, and then she reached out with a message. Initially, it was gentle. "I hope you're managing well." Then, it became a bit more straightforward. "I've been reflecting on our discussion. Are you available this Friday?" It was just the two of us. Words were unnecessary. The understanding hung in the air like a silent agreement. Dylan had plans for a weekend camping trip with friends. She mentioned it casually, as if it were nothing significant, yet I sensed she was subtly encouraging me. That Friday evening, I arrived around 600. Her hair flowed freely, makeup understated, yet perfectly applied. She donned a pair of jeans paired with a straightforward t-shirt. There was nothing ostentatious about her attire, just her essence. And she appeared absolutely stunning. We gathered in the kitchen, the air filled only with our conversation, devoid of any music. That night, her laughter rang out more than I had ever witnessed. I remarked on her beauty, and I could have sworn I caught a hint of crimson on her cheeks. She poured us some wine, and for the first time I felt a sense of belonging, rather than the thrill of sneaking around. It felt right. After dinner, we moved into the living room. She settled next to me once more. Same couch, same place, yet the atmosphere had shifted. There was no tension, only a subtle anticipation of something we both desired. She rested her head softly against my shoulder, and I covered her hand with mine. "Are you still okay with this?" she asked. "More than okay," I replied. And then, we shared our first kiss. It unfolded with a deliberate grace, devoid of urgency or need. Each moment lingered, rich with unspoken words. A kiss imbued with significance. That night lingered on, filled with conversation, tender kisses, and the warmth of our embrace. Not once did it feel out of place. What we shared was vibrant, exhilarating, and undeniably genuine for both of us. Before I departed that evening, she cast me a glance unlike any I had encountered previously. It bore no trace of nervousness. It held no hint of guilt. "I'm not sure where this is headed," she admitted. "But I definitely don't want it to end." "Then don't," I replied. We remained unaware of anyone's answers. She nodded, and offered me a smile that felt genuine, as if she had finally ceased her pretense. After that moment, things shifted, though not in an explosive or dramatic fashion. No grand gestures or loud proclamations. It transformed subtly, in ways that hold true significance. We never defined it as a relationship. We failed to establish any ground rules or discuss what lay ahead. Instead, we simply pressed on. The next time our paths crossed was 4 days later, when I saw Sophia again. Dylan extended an invitation for me to join him in watching the game. Without hesitation, I accepted. The thought of her presence was enough to spark my interest. As I stepped into the house, I found her in the kitchen, rinsing dishes with a quiet grace. She cast a fleeting glance over her shoulder, a smile gracing her lips. That simple moment was enough to stir something within me. No words exchanged, no physical contact, yet it conveyed precisely what I needed to hear. You've been on my mind constantly as well. That day, Dylan was completely immersed in the game, shouting at the screen and flinging popcorn around like a wild man, utterly unaware of anything else. Sophia entered, distributed drinks, and took a seat across the room as if nothing was amiss. We seamlessly maintained the facade, expertly avoiding any strange tension or uncomfortable silence. Yet, each time our gazes intertwined, the bond between us reignited with fervor. Following the game, Dylan escorted me to the door, still buzzing with energy over a questionable call or misstep. Meanwhile, Sophia lingered in the kitchen doorway, a glass of wine in hand, observing silently. Just before I stepped out, our eyes met once more, a silent exchange that lingered in the air. Later that night, a message from her arrived, and I couldn't help but think how I wished we'd had just a moment to ourselves. I replied, "Same here. You occupy my thoughts incessantly." Her response arrived swiftly. Tomorrow I didn't bother to inquire about her meaning. I simply responded, "Yes." From that moment forward, we established a system unspoken, nuanced, yet undeniably strong. Whenever Dylan worked a late shift, went out with friends, or took off for the weekend, she always found a way to communicate with me. Sometimes it was a straightforward message. Other times it was just a particular glance. Regardless, I understood when the moment had arrived. The initial visits filled me with anxiety. I would park a street away, biding my time until the lights dimmed, occasionally sneaking in through the side if the door happened to be ajar. It wasn't out of guilt, at least not towards each other, but rather an understanding that the outside world wouldn't comprehend our connection. Especially not her son. But the moment I stepped inside, everything else vanished. She would be there. No makeup, hair cascading down, dressed in a cozy sweatshirt and leggings, always greeting me with a smile that seemed to have been tucked away until just then. Our conversations flowed, touching not only on us though, that was a frequent topic, but also on life. Her work, my job, her feelings of invisibility, and my own sense of never quite belonging. Yet with her, I never sensed the distance of an outsider or the role of a mere guest. Instead, I felt an undeniable sense of belonging. There were moments when we shared the kitchen, creating meals side by side. At other moments we nestled together on the couch, her feet resting comfortably in my lap. A movie flickered on the screen, one that neither of us particularly cared for. On certain nights, words felt unnecessary, and silence wrapped around us like a warm blanket. Just being in each other's embrace was sufficient. She revealed parts of herself that I believe she had never shared with anyone else. She confided in me about how Dylan's father left before he even came into the world. She never remarried, for no one ever made her feel truly seen again. The struggle of raising a son alone weighed heavily on her, yet pride swelled within her, even if he could never grasp the depths of her sacrifices. I too revealed my own truths about growing up in a home where silence spoke volumes, far beyond what words could convey. I often pondered the notion that I was destined for something greater, yet the specifics eluded me. Most individuals my age didn't engage in conversation as she did, nor did they possess her capacity for listening. It transcended the mere physical aspect, even though that element was undeniably present. Indeed, it was genuine. It was charged with energy. Yet, what truly captivated me was the way her gaze met mine as I spoke, as if I held significance, as if I had finally emerged from the shadows of invisibility. We discovered small gestures to maintain our bond during the times apart. I would share a song that I believed would resonate with her. In return, she'd capture a picture of her coffee and message, "Wish you were here." I would send a silly joke, and she'd respond with a heart. I understood that this wasn't something she shared with just anyone. Yet, as our connection deepened, the burden of the secret began to weigh heavily on me. It wasn't guilt that weighed on him. It was the suffocating pressure of concealing a truth so palpable. Dylan remained blissfully unaware. If anything, his fondness for me had only grown. He began referring to me as his best bro, extending more invitations, and introducing me to others as if I were already one of the gang. He even quipped once, "Man, if you're not careful, you're going to end up family." Sophia and I continued to play our roles. We became quite skilled at it, in fact. Exceptionally skilled. She was careful not to send too many texts while Dylan was around. I decided to stop liking her social media posts, just to be cautious. Whenever I visited the house, we ensured we didn't sit too close, avoided prolonged eye contact, and certainly refrained from any physical touch. Yet, there were moments when we faltered. Like that instance when I made a joke, and her laughter was so genuine that she instinctively reached out to touch my knee, only to suddenly freeze. Dylan remained oblivious, but the two of us were acutely aware of the shift. Or the moment we found ourselves in the same room, and a familiar song began to play, the very one that had filled the air on that night, spent together on her couch. She cast me a glance, lingering just a heartbeat too long, prompting me to avert my gaze. We both understood that this couldn't continue indefinitely, yet neither of us was ready to bring it to an end. One night, I lay beside her in bed, the room enveloped in silence, save for the gentle cadence of her breath. "Have you ever contemplated what might unfold if Dylan discovered the truth?" I inquired. She responded with a slow nod. "It occupies my thoughts constantly." Then she turned to me with a serious expression. "The thought of losing him and perhaps losing you as well hit me harder than I anticipated." "I don't want that to happen," I said firmly. "Neither do I," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But I also don't want to let this go." She extended her hand, and I clasped it firmly. We refrained from discussing the future that evening. No vows, no possibilities. We remained in the moment. Two individuals who likely didn't belong together, yet somehow fit seamlessly. As summer approached, Sophia and I discovered our groove. It was no longer a rhythm of secrecy, it had transformed into something that felt inherently ours. We mastered the art of moving with caution when Dylan was around, perfecting the timing of our messages, and skillfully evading detection. It wasn't paranoia, it was a matter of survival. Strangely, we became adept at it, as if we had been honing our skills all along without even knowing it. What lingered in my mind was the surprising ease of it all. I would arrive, and she would welcome me with a casual nod, as if I were simply another one of Dylan's acquaintances. Dylan would hand me a drink, and we would spend our time upstairs or in the garage, just enjoying each other's company. As he departed for class or headed to the gym late, I would find myself once again leaning against the kitchen counter, watching her brew tea. We both played our parts, pretending the charged atmosphere between us was nothing to acknowledge. There was no need for words anymore. No labels, no heavy discussions about our feelings, yet every touch of her hand, every serene evening spent side by side, carried significance. Even in the presence of others, the connection lingered. Just like that afternoon, in the backyard. Dylan fiddled with the fire pit while Sophia approached, offering me a plate. Her fingers brushed against mine, a fleeting touch that stretched into an eternity. No one else noticed, but the sensation reverberated in my chest for a full 10 minutes. She possessed an uncanny ability to make me feel seen, even amidst a sea of faces. When I spoke, she didn't merely bide her time, she truly listened. She truly listened. She recalled the little details. She made me feel as though my words mattered, and that sensation was intoxicating. One evening, we found ourselves alone once more. Dylan had dashed off to see a girl he was dating and wouldn't return until the late hours. The moment the door clicked shut, Sophia approached me with an unmistakable sense of urgency. We took our time, as was our way. We nestled under a blanket on the couch, as if it were the most instinctive act imaginable. We engaged in a deep conversation, delving into more than just the mechanics of our relationship. We explored life, our histories, regrets, and aspirations. At this age, she said softly, I thought I'd have more, not wealth or achievement. I mean love, someone who truly sees me, someone to share life with. Without a second thought, I replied, you do have that. Her gaze met mine, and an unmistakable shift flickered across her features. Perhaps, just perhaps, she truly believed it. She leaned in and kissed me with a deliberate slowness, as if she wished for the moment to linger indefinitely. To be honest, I felt the same way. Later that evening, as we lay together, she drifted off in my embrace. In that moment, I understood that the fear of discovery had faded away. I felt no fear regarding the implications of it all. My only concern was the possibility of losing it. The following morning, I departed early, before Dylan returned. We parted ways not as lovers, but as cautious friends. Yet, just before I stepped away, she pressed her fingertips into my palm for a fleeting moment. That simple act conveyed more than any words could express. As time passed, we became more daring, or perhaps we simply acclimated to our reality. I'd send her a message during the day, and she'd respond with a gentle image of her smile. Nothing overt, just intimate, cherished moments. Dylan remained oblivious. If anything, his trust in me had deepened. He confided in me about other friends who had abandoned him, and girls who had suddenly gone silent, leaving him in the dark. Each time he uttered it, "You've been unwavering since the very beginning." Something coiled within my chest. Not quite guilt, but rather a stark reminder of how perilously close I had been to the brink. At one point, he even quipped, "You're the only guy I trust when it comes to my mom. She genuinely has feelings for you." With a gentle smile, I found myself at ease. Not a word was exchanged. Sophia and I never broached the subject of what might unfold if we were discovered. It felt as though we had reached a tacit understanding. If we simply turned a blind eye to the risk, perhaps it would remain at bay. Then arrived the weekend that granted us our longest period of solitude. Dylan was setting off with friends for a 3-day hiking adventure out of town. As soon as he exited the driveway, I was en route. It was a fleeting glimpse of something genuine. We whipped up pancakes in the morning, twirled in the kitchen without shoes, and indulged in movies during the afternoon, as if we had no obligations to the world outside. She spent the entire weekend without makeup, and I truly believe she radiated even more beauty in that simplicity. She always possessed a natural allure. On that second night, we found ourselves on the back porch, sipping wine beneath the vast expanse of stars. She nestled beside me, wrapped in a throw blanket, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wish we could have this," she murmured. "Indeed, we do," I replied to her. "I mean, beyond these walls," she added. "For real, not just stolen time." I paused before replying. I drew her in tighter and murmured, "I know." Then I continued, "I desire that as well, but I fear losing what we've built." She nodded softly against my shoulder. "Neither do I." She glanced up at me and added, "So, we protect it for as long as we can." And thus, our unspoken agreement was forged. No enduring commitments, no grand statements. Persevere onward. Ensure its security. Let it remain ours. That night in bed, I recall lying there, contemplating. This isn't merely a fling. This wasn't solely about fun or evading consequences. It felt larger, more tangible than anything else I had ever experienced. And the wildest thing? We were actually making it happen. No one had the slightest inkling. Neither Dylan, nor the neighbors, nor the coworkers, nor the friends. We had unwittingly wandered into a hidden realm, a place that felt exclusively ours. In a remarkable twist of fate, we managed to be both wise and cautious enough to hold on to it. I was uncertain about how much longer we could maintain our precarious balance on that tightrope. Yet, I was acutely aware that my departure was not imminent. Nearly a year has passed. It has been a complete year since that fateful afternoon. As Dylan dashed off to the store, Sophia turned to me, her words hanging in the air. At last, we find ourselves in solitude. Her voice lingers in my ears, her expression etched in my mind as if it were a recent memory. A solitary moment blossomed into something profoundly richer. Our secret remained securely confined. We have exercised extreme caution. All messages have been erased. Each gaze meticulously rehearsed. Each moment of every visit counts. We have existed in the quiet moments that linger between those slender windows during Dylan's absence. The hushed spaces nestled between the mundane and the enigmatic. Yet, the mystery remains unsolved. I visit regularly, just as I always do. To those beyond the veil, I remain merely a friend. Dylan's friend, D.A. The individual who is perpetually present, sharing laughter with his mother, embodying the essence of a reliable and commendable character. Yet, in the quiet moments, I am the one she seeks solace in as night falls. The person attuned to the fragrance of her shampoo, capable of deciphering her entire mood from the subtle sigh that escapes her lips as she steps through the threshold. Many believe that secrets such as ours fade swiftly, that they ultimately collapse in on themselves. However, this particular one did not. It evolved. It transformed into something entirely new. Our paths don't cross daily. Life doesn't operate in such a manner. There are moments when a fortnight slips by, and all we exchange are brief, reassuring messages. Yet, when we finally carve out a moment, it remains undeniably genuine. Perhaps it feels more authentic now than it ever has before. Recently, Dylan extended an invitation for a cozy movie night at his place. A relaxed gathering, nothing too intense. Him, myself, and a handful of colleagues. Sophia lingered upstairs for the majority of the evening, allowing us the freedom to breathe. As the clock struck 1,000, individuals began to make their way out. As Dylan escorted one gentleman to his car, I lingered behind, tidying up the scattered cups and plates left in our wake. As I navigated the kitchen, the sound of footsteps echoed from the stairs. I found myself standing still, no need to pivot at all. I sensed her approach. As I pivoted, I found her poised in the hallway, silently observing my every move. She remained silent, utterly still, her eyes locked onto mine. Then, just above a whisper, she formed the words silently. As the clock strikes 12, the world is cloaked in darkness. I offered her the faintest of nods. That evening, I left my car parked down the street, as was my routine, and strolled the remainder of the distance. The house lay shrouded in darkness, precisely as we had envisioned. I entered through the side gate and quietly made my way through the back door, just as we had done countless times in the past. In the kitchen, she stood barefoot, clad in a loose shirt, her hair cascading freely around her shoulders. Her eyes held a weariness, yet there was a serene calmness about her. We took our time with everything. We no longer engage in that activity. We lingered in the quiet, our arms entwined, words unspoken between us. Later, as we lay in bed, she asked softly, "Do you ever ponder what this truly means?" "Every time I see you," I said to her. "I mean where it's going." I paused before responding. She crept nearer. "I truly do. I find myself pondering what it might be like if we were not concealing ourselves. If only I could kiss you in the morning, free from the gaze of onlookers." And I longed for that as well. I wanted to assure her that we would find a solution together. Yet, the reality is, we were unable to. Not at this moment. Not at this moment. I ponder it as well. I spoke, and she acknowledged with a nod. Yet, It surpasses our initial expectations, doesn't it? I gazed at her and replied, Indeed it is. We chose not to label it or confine it. We refrained from exchanging promises that we might not fulfill. In that serene instant, it became clear to us both that this was more than a mere escape. It wasn't a choice we would come to regret. It was love. Soft, chaotic, fragile. A love that thrived in the gaps of our everyday existence. She turned and nestled her head against my chest. As long as he remains unaware, he simply won't. I remarked, we exercise caution. We possess intelligence. Should he ever find himself in that position? I halted for a moment, inhaled deeply, and then we confronted it side by side. The following morning, I departed as I routinely did. No evidence, no logic, merely a subtle shift in her demeanor as she escorted me to the threshold. The lingering gaze of her eyes upon me for that fleeting second, the gentle pressure of her hand before she released it. Dylan remained in a deep slumber upstairs. The house stood in silence. I ventured outside, made my way back to my car, and faded into the embrace of the morning light. Merely a man embarking on the journey of a new day. And that is how it has unfolded. Even now, we continue to discover ways to unite. We cherish the moments, not out of recklessness or thrill, but because they carry significance. Though unplanned and born from stolen moments and quiet spaces, it undeniably exists. In the soft glow of the early morning, just last week, we found ourselves lying there when she uttered those words. The moment you stepped into my home, the weight of loneliness lifted from my shoulders. And I said to her, I ceased to feel adrift the moment you allowed me to remain. So where does it conclude? Perhaps it doesn't. Perhaps this is simply how it remains. Our small truth concealed within the vast expanse of the world. No grand displays, no overwhelming theatrics, just a subtle affection that remains unnoticed. And for us, that suffices. Farewell.